Hi, this is Kathy from Gadgets Top 321, and in today's video, I'm taking a look at the Bastion Bolt Action Pen. Bastion reached out to me about 7 months ago and asked if I would be interested in taking a look and trying out one of their pens. They let me choose any pen from their website, and I chose, I think this is their original model, the ballpoint pen. And I'll talk a little bit in a moment about why I made that choice. One thing I noticed is it said it was designed in the USA, and I'll also talk about that again in just a moment. And I got the Bolt Action Pen in titanium. It has a gray finish. That's not the raw titanium, that's a finish. And I'm not sure what this new means. Maybe titanium is a newer material for this model. I'm not sure. But when you pull the inner box out of the sleeve, it's got a nice magnetic flap. It only opens to about 90 degrees. If you try to open it farther than that, I think it would break that hinge. Packed in nice foam. It came nestled in this plastic. It makes it easy to pull out, and a foamy type material in there. Nice packaging. I was a little bit concerned about the grippiness of it. I know with some fountain pens, metal sections tend to be slippery to me, and I've kind of learned chrome-plated sections and anodized aluminum tend to be the slipperiest. Things like raw stainless steel and brass aren't too bad. I kind of like those. And whatever this finish is on the titanium, it is nice and grippy. I like the clip on this. It's got a nice kind of tactical looking, a nice strong clip. It is pretty stiff. But for the most part, I use clips like this mainly as roll stops. And this is even though it's made out of a titanium, it's lighter than, say, a stainless steel pen of this size would be. But it's still decently heavy. I wouldn't imagine anybody would be carrying this in a shirt pocket. But a clip like this, I imagine, would be nice for like a jeans pocket. And in fact, when I was carrying this to school, I carried it in my Lockbee. I've got to get this started. I haven't carried it in here in a while. But the entire time I used this, I carried it in my Lockbee pocket journal. And so this is a fairly thick little piece of material here. And it clips on there nicely and holds it in here securely. Now, I've mentioned this before. It fits in there nice and tightly, and over time, as you carry it, it loosens up a little bit. But since I haven't carried it in here in a while, look how that waxed canvas just goes back to normal. I like that. But like I said, this is a bolt action ballpoint pen, and I chose this original size because as I looked over the website, it looked like this little bolt action mechanism, when you engage it, it wouldn't have a little gap up here. One of the things I noticed in the marketing that I had seen previously about Bastion pens is when it's engaged, there was a gap up here. But my modern fuel pen, you notice when you engage it, it's still covered with metal. And so on the slim model of the pen, which is what I probably would have picked up, either the slim model or they also had a mini bolt action pen. I didn't get the mini because you could only get it in aluminum. And I have found after using my Kaweco Lilliput, for a small pen like that, aluminum is just too lightweight. So that's what knocked out the mini pen. And the slim pen, in the pictures, there was a gap when you engaged the bolt mechanism. And so when I engaged the bolt, to my disappointment, there's a gap there. And I thought, well, darn it, I would have gotten the slim if I would have known that was going to be the case. But I'm kind of glad that I didn't. In using this pen, you see all my other pens are fairly narrow except for the Pilot G2. This has a nice feel to it. The entire time I was in school using mechanical pencils and gel pens and whatnot, I always gripped my writing utensil pretty tightly, and I just had this perpetual callus on my finger with a little divot worn into it, and I didn't have to write for long at all, and my hand would get tired and my finger would get sore. But with this larger radius, it's a flatter outer edge, and my hand doesn't get as tired or as sore. So in retrospect, I'm glad I got this model. Now, like I said, I used this at school, and I wrote with the ballpoint, or the ballpoint refill that came with it, for a little while, and it was fine. It's like any other ballpoint that I've written with. But since I was using it at school, I took out the blue refill and put in a green ballpoint refill that I had bought previously to test in some other pens, and used it for marking up papers. I wasn't doing a whole lot of feedback on the papers, so it was minimal writing, and so that worked out really nicely. But since I've retired from teaching, I haven't been writing with this as much. So I'm wanting to replace this refill. I put the original refill back in it. I'm wanting to replace this refill with a gel refill. I'm not sure exactly what brand this is. It's got some Bastion branding on it. And this is a Parker style refill. I noticed I got on Bastion's website and saw that they sell ballpoint and gel refills in black, blue, and red. But when you're buying the pen originally, I think you can only get it with ballpoint refills. And so I found a Parker Jotter gel. So I got one of those so that I can switch refills. I'll put the Bastion ballpoint refill in the Jotter, and I'll put the gel refill in the Bastion Bolt Action. I haven't tried it yet, so I'll do a writing sample when I switch those out, and I'll do a writing sample with the original ballpoint refill. But you saw where I had removed the nose cone earlier. It's a pretty nice seam. You can see it if you turn it in the light just right. You can maybe see the seam there. And you can feel it if you're looking for it, but in writing it's a very smooth seam there. Now the bolt mechanism is nice and fidgety. And when I compare it to my Modern Fuel, when I got the Modern Fuel, I was a little bit disappointed in how spongy the mechanism is. But once I've discovered how to properly fidget with it, I kind of like it the way it is. But see how there's not a very big dip there? And so you can just bump it to disengage it. But with the Bastion, this is a much stronger spring, and see how it dips down a little farther there. Initially, when I tried this one, I thought, now this spring is too heavy. But once you start fidgeting it, just the sound of how strong that mechanism is and how it clicks into place, it's pretty fidgety. That would be annoying to do that if you're around people, but if you have an office to yourself, that's pretty fun. All right, let me see. I'm going to go ahead and I'll let you see how these compare to each other. This is the Bastion, the Modern Fuel Bolt Action Pen, a Machine Era Markup. This is the same size as, I think it's called a Machine Era Original or something like that. I apologize, my cat once in my office. This is a Machine Era Field Pen Twist, Parker Jotter Gel Pen, and a Pilot G2. Okay, I'll do a writing sample with the included ballpoint refill. All right, now I'll swap out for the Parker Gel refill. It's a 0.7. All right. Oh, that was so sloppy, sorry. Okay, this is Rhodia paper, and you can see that gel refill just smears a little bit, but the ballpoint refill didn't smear at all, but this gel refill seems to soak into the paper fairly quickly. Let's see if I give it 5 seconds. Yeah, dries in about 5 seconds. Let me see. Let me mark that this was 0.7. I want to test this. It looks a little inconsistent in the ink flow. But it is much more pleasant to write with than the ballpoint refill. Let me check this against my Pilot G2, which is also a 0.7. Little inconsistency in the ink flow there. This seems to be a little bit wetter, but still, if I give it 5 seconds, this one's still smearing a little bit, so let me test the smoothness. The Pilot G2 might be slightly smoother. When I hold it down at an angle, I can feel the edge, like where the ball is. If you hold it at a higher angle, that's nice and smooth, but at a lower angle, I can feel it digging into the paper. Let me see the Pilot one more time. At a higher angle, very smooth. At a low, if I hold it at a very low angle, I can feel it digging in, but and it could be, maybe it has something to do with how wide this pen is. I don't know. This one's fairly wide, but I'm getting off into the weeds. This isn't even the Bastion refill. Let me make sure I got all the plastic stuff off the... Yeah, the gel is much better than the ballpoint refill. I feel like I'm going to get more use out of my pen now. A journal that I enjoy using a gel pen with, in fact, that I can only use a gel pen with, is my Peter Pauper Press faux leather journal. I got this one from Barnes & Noble, but they're inexpensive. You can get them Amazon, whatever. They come in a lot of different colors. And I was hoping to find some fountain pen that I could use with this paper, but they all bleed through and don't really feather, but the ink just spreads incredibly bad. Let's see how it does with the Parker refill, Parker gel refill. I anticipate it'll do just fine because this Parker refill seems to be just slightly drier than the Pilot refill. And when that gel ink soaks into the paper, you don't really see it spreading like you do with fountain pen ink, but it just puts down a nice bold line. I've just always enjoyed writing in this journal with gel pens. And it soaks into the paper instantly. You don't have to wait the 5 seconds. It soaks in, no smearing, no bleed through. Okay, I said I would talk about the designed in the USA. Originally, I wanted to get the Bastion fountain pen, but as I was reading through the specs, I noticed that the nibs were made by Moonman, and I'm not a big fan of Moonman nibs, and so I suspect that this is designed in the USA, but possibly made in China. So if that's an issue, that's something to consider. I could have taken the Moonman nib out of the fountain pen and put one of my Yovo nibs in it, but except for the stub nib, the Yovo stub nibs that I own, all my other Yovo nibs are already in a little nib collar, and I know that Yovo nibs, in the past year or so, people have had issues with their nib collars cracking, and so I didn't want to take any chances taking my nibs in and out of the nib collars. So instead of getting the fountain pen, I got the ballpoint pen with the idea that after I tried the ballpoint refill, I would put a gel refill in. And so now I'm excited to get back to journaling in my Peter Pauper journal with something other than a Pilot G2. I originally got into non-fountain pen pens because I was looking for a nice holder for a G2 refill, but I may get into comparing and contrasting these later. I like to have certain pens that I like to use that I know work well with certain journals, so these two are going to go together from now on. All right, if you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.